Hey guys, Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. In today's video, I want to talk about an approach to soloing that you may or may not already be aware of. I've made a few videos on this in the past, but I'm not really a huge fan of this approach. So let me explain to you how this works and why exactly I'm not a fan of this approach, but maybe after watching this video you will be. So let's check it out. So the whole idea here is you're going to be playing one pentatonic per chord. So the example chord progression that we're going to be using for this video is going to be a C major to a G major to a D minor, to an A minor. So all four of those chords are in the same key. The way that I would do it is I would just say, okay, all of those chords are in the key of C major. That's my one and only scale I'm using over the entire chord progression. Over all four chords, that is the one and only scale I'm using. You could also say that it's the key of A minor. It's going to be the same 7 notes either way, whether you say it's the key of C major or the key of A minor. You map out the 7 notes of the C major scale across the fretboard, or you map out the 7 notes of the A minor scale across the fretboard. It's going to be the exact same thing. So if you want to call it C major, you're perfectly correct. If you call it A minor, again, you're perfectly correct. I don't care which one you call it. It's just one single scale, though. That's the way that I would look at it. There's this misconception that people have where they think that they need to play one scale per chord. Now, if you're a jazz player, this is probably true because jazz players tend to play, they're playing over things that have like a million chords. There's no definitive key, like you're in a key and then you're in a new key and then you're in a new key and you're in a new key. Jazz is a totally different animal. So almost all of the videos that I make are about key-based music, non-jazz music. Most of the stuff that you probably listen to, assuming you're not a jazz musician, is probably key-based music. Some examples of some popular key-based solos that you've almost definitely heard before. One would be the Hotel California solo, the ending solo of that song that's in the key of B minor. There's really only one scale that you need to worry about, and that is the B minor scale. Of course, he's throwing in a few extra notes here and there. I should say there's 2 guitar players doing that solo. They're throwing in a few extra notes, some chromatic notes. There's a few out-of-key chords that are going on, and so they're targeting those out-of-key notes as those out-of-key chords are playing in the rhythm section. But ultimately, it's just one key. It's one main scale that you're worried about. It's the B minor scale. They're not playing a different scale over each chord. It's just the B minor scale the whole time. Another example would be the Comfortably Numb solo. Again, that's in the key of B minor. The whole entire solo is just one single scale. That's it. The Stairway to Heaven solo, the key of A minor, so he's playing the A minor scale the whole entire time. So this common misconception, coupled with the fact that guitar players love patterns. We love simple patterns, especially the pentatonic scale, especially pentatonic position number 1. We all know and love this pattern right here. We all know that pattern. Guitar players love that pattern. This all leads to this one pentatonic per chord approach. People think that they're switching scales per chord, and they also like to have the shortcut of a pattern-based approach, if you want to say that, You typically won't see this approach done by piano players. This is really a guitar player thing. So anyway, back to our example chord progression. C major to G major to D minor to A minor. 4 chords in the progression. So if you wanted to, you could play the C major pentatonic scale over the C major chord. Then you could play the G major pentatonic scale over the G major chord. Then you could play the D minor pentatonic scale over the D minor chord. And then the A minor pentatonic scale over the A minor chord. So if you want to do that, that is a perfectly acceptable approach, and you actually won't be hitting any bad notes if you do that. Every single thing that you play will be 100% in key. In other words, every single note that you play by playing those 4 pentatonic scales, 1 per chord, every single note that you play will be part of the one and only key scale that we have already defined in the beginning. Remember, we said that this chord progression puts us in the key of either C major or A minor. Call it whatever you want. As far as I'm concerned, it's the same key. That key has 7 notes in it. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, or if you want to start with the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever, it's just all the natural notes. There's no sharps, there's no flats. This is the one key that doesn't have any sharps or flat notes in it. So that's the one and only key scale that you need to worry about. So if you play the C major pentatonic scale, you're still just playing 5 of those 7 notes. If you play the G major pentatonic scale, again, you're just playing 5 of those 7 notes. If you play the D minor pentatonic scale, you're just playing 5 of those 7 notes. And if you're playing the A minor pentatonic scale, you're just playing 5 of those 7 notes. So this is going to keep you in key. And this is also going to be kind of connecting you with the underlying chord progression. Much more than if you just completely ignore the chords altogether and you just say, you know what, I don't care about those chords. I'm just going to play the key scale. I'm going to noodle around in my patterns and stuff like that. No attention paid to the chords whatsoever. You know, this is more of like a focusing on what the chords are doing type of approach if you do this. But there's a major downside to this, and that is the fact that you're not using the full 7-note key scale for each of the chords. So as I said, you have one scale, and that is the key scale, and that is the scale that's going to work over all of the chords in the chord progression, assuming all of the chords in the chord progression are from the same key. Your one single scale has 7 notes in it. That's how many notes are found in any key. That's your key scale. That's your diatonic scale. There's 7 notes. So over the first chord, you have a palette of 7 notes to use. Over the second chord, you have the same palette of 7 notes. Over the third chord, you have the same palette of 7 notes. Fourth chord, you have the same palette of 7 notes. That's using the full key scale over each of the chords. But then you have the best sounding notes of those 7 notes. So over the first chord, 3 of those 7 notes are going to be the best sounding notes. Over the second chord, a different 3 of those same 7 notes are going to be the best sounding notes. Same thing for the third chord, same thing for the fourth chord. But ultimately, you're utilizing the full 7-note key scale over all of the chords, just kind of sustaining on the chord tones or kind of emphasizing the chord tones as the chords change, you know? When you do this one pentatonic per chord thing, you're only using 5 notes per chord. You're limiting yourself. You're not using the full key scale. You're not utilizing the full key scale melodic spectrum, if you want to call it that, you know? So over the first chord, you're limiting yourself to 5 notes, 3 of which are going to be the chord tones or the triad tones. So you have 5 notes, 3 of which sound the best. You're omitting 2 of those notes. Maybe those other 2 notes that you're omitting, maybe those are going to be really, really nice notes. Maybe those are great notes to kind of bend on, like start on one of those notes and bend to a chord tone. But, you know, you're kind of limiting yourself. You're just using 5 of them. And then you go on to the second chord, chord number 2. Again, you have a different set of 5 notes, 3 of which are going to be the chord tones, 2 of which are going to be not the chord tones or not the triad tones. Again, you're limiting yourself. You're omitting the other 2 notes of the key scale. So let me just give you a quick demonstration here. So I'm just going to use pentatonic position number 1 for each chord. So for a minor pentatonic, you locate your pentatonic position number 1 with your index finger. And then for major pentatonic, you locate pentatonic position number 1 with your pinky finger. So we have a C major chord to a G major chord to a D minor chord to an A minor chord. So for the C major chord, locate pentatonic position number 1 with your pinky, put it on the note C on the low E string right there, 8th fret. Here's pentatonic position number 1, C major. And then for the G major chord, put that on the note G because it's major. So here's your G up here, 15th fret. And then for the D minor chord, since it's minor, put that on the note D on the low E string, 10th fret of the low E string, so here's D minor. And then the last one is A minor. So minor, put that on the note A, 5th fret. All right, so that sounded okay. It's not, I mean, it's not really how I would personally solo. Some people prefer to do that, and that's perfectly fine. If that's you, don't let me stop you, you know? But that's a lot of jumping around, in my opinion. You know, I had to jump from here, and then I jumped up to here, and then down to here, and then down to here. Like, what if I just want to play in just one single area, you know? Why should I have to jump around that much? And you absolutely can. You can still take this one pentatonic per chord approach and just kind of confine yourself to one little area. So I could still play the C major pentatonic to the G major pentatonic to the D minor pentatonic to the A minor pentatonic, and I can do it all right here in this little area, like frets 4 to 9 or something. I don't know, like this little area of the fretboard. So if I wanted to do the same thing and I wanted to confine myself to this area, my C major pentatonic scale would be found in position number 1 right here. And then G major pentatonic would be found in position 3, right in this little area. All right, and then D minor pentatonic scale would be found in position number 4 right here. And then A minor pentatonic scale would be found in position number 1 right here. All right, so again, that didn't sound too bad, but it didn't sound too great either. And it also required a whole lot of thinking, like way more thinking than I'm trying to do, you know? Like, we still took the 1 pentatonic per chord approach, but we kind of confined everything right to here. And by doing that, you're losing the benefit of the 1 pentatonic per chord approach in the first place. The whole benefit of this, which benefits guitar players mainly, piano players don't have the same benefit because piano players are thinking in notes and not in these patterns on the fretboard. At least in the first demo, the first example, I just had to use this pattern the whole time. Then I jumped up to here and used the same pattern. Then I jumped down here and used the same pattern. You know, so I had the advantage of being able to use the same pattern on the fretboard, and that's really why guitar players tend to prefer this 1 pentatonic per chord approach thing. But when you confine it all to this one area, you're like, oh, okay, C major pentatonic position number 1, and then it moves to G major pentatonic position number 3, and then it moves to D minor pentatonic position number 4, and then A minor pentatonic position number 1. Like, that's a lot of thinking, you know? So you lose the whole benefit. At least the way I see it, you lose the whole benefit of why people even prefer to do this in the first place, you know? Anyway, so I'm going to just give you a third demo now, and I'm just going to say, let's just focus on the one and only scale, which is kind of what we've been doing all along anyway. There's only one scale. It's the C major scale, or it's the A minor scale, call it what you want. So we'll just use the same fretboard region. We'll just use frets like 4 to 9. We'll just map out all the A, B, C, D, E, F, G notes in this little area. So that's going to be my little soloing area. And I'm just going to use that over all 4 chords. I only have to think of one scale the whole time. And then I'm just going to kind of highlight the chord tones as the chords change. And those are going to be the notes that I tend to sustain on, because those are the notes that sound the best on a per chord basis. So check this out. All right, so when I do it that way, and that's my preferred way to do it, I just feel like I have a lot more freedom. You know, I have the full 7-note key scale to use the entire time. I'm not limited to just 5 notes per chord. And then I just have certain notes that I focus on as the chords change, which are the chord tones of the underlying chords. I've been saying this for years, and I know you guys are probably sick of hearing me say that. You're like, all right, dude, chord tones, I get it, shut up. Anyway, but hopefully you can understand why I'm not really a huge fan of the 1 pentatonic per chord approach. Maybe you may be a fan of the 1 pentatonic per chord approach. Try it out, see if it works for you. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Anyway, I have a bunch of other videos on this. Check out my channel. If you go on the Zombie Guitar website, you will find the lessons on this particular approach in the in-depth lesson portal in the chord tone targeting section. So, yeah, check that out. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask. Thank you for watching. See you next time.